This is the moment in Dom's life where it all went to shit.
This is where Franzia stock just decided to go up, honestly. Like, if we could pinpoint any moment in my life where, like, everything went wrong...
It was this.
For substance abuse.
Yeah. And we're back to the Sports Experience Podcast. I'm one of your co-hosts, Chris Quinn, with my co-host, Dom DiTolla. And we're here talking football.
Football. One of the most surprising teams to ever make a Super Bowl appearance, probably in league history.
Their only Super Bowl appearance, and they essentially got rid of a huge amount of their team the year before.
Yeah. So we're talking about the 1994 San Diego Chargers.
That's right.
And I want to set a backdrop to kind of how they arrived here and kind of how, even though I'm from San Diego, a fan of the Padres and the Aztecs, I'm not a Chargers fan. And the reason for this is the Chargers had like really good teams in the late 70s, early 80s under Don Coryell. The offense with Dan Fouts, Wes Chandler, John Jefferson, guys on defense like Fred Dean, guys on offense like Chuck Muncie and Kellen Winslow. So from like 79 to 82, they make the playoffs every season, I believe. Yeah, every season they make the playoffs. 79, though, they have the number one seed and they lose in the divisional round.
Oh, yeah, okay.
80, they lose the AFC Championship game at home to the Raiders. 81, they lose the Freezer Bowl to the Bengals in the AFC Championship game.
Yep.
And in 82, they lose in the playoffs to the Dolphins, who eventually become Super Bowl participants in the AFC. But what ends up happening is the wheels fall off starting in 83. And they fall off from 83 to 91. Because during this time period, 83 to 91, the Chargers are absolute dog shit. Not only are your best players getting older and retiring, in that 9-year stretch where their head coaches were Coryell, Al Saunders, Dan Henning, one winning season, and it was a strike-shortened year. They were 8-7 in 1987.
Oh, yeah.
They are just god off. And for someone like me, born in 1987, you know, San Diego is a transplant city, largely. Large military population. A lot of people who live there aren't originally from there, almost like Phoenix, like we've talked about before. Yep. And parents have rooting allegiances and stuff like that from other places. Neither of my parents had a baseball team. And my dad always took me to Aztecs games, so love the Padres and the Aztecs. But the Chargers were really crappy during this time period that the only Charger games I ever went to at Jack Murphy were when the Broncos played because that was my dad's favorite team.
Yeah.
So, like...
And it's easy during this era to like the Broncos and not the Chargers.
Well, yeah, because they got the Three Amigos and everybody like that.
Well, it's just... And we were talking about this, like, the thought of... rebuilding. This is what I kind of wanted to, because teams get stuck in rebuilds for a decade.
Well, and it all starts with the quarterback position, because once Fouts is gone, it all goes to shit. You have guys like Mark Malone, Babe Laufenberg, Mark Vlasic, Jim McMahon past his prime, Billy Joe Tolliver, Bob Galliano starting games. I mean, it starts at the top, and it's just not getting better.
It's interesting because I saw this about quarterbacks where they're like, in the league, there's probably about 5 to 6 great quarterbacks that deserve this top money, and then everybody else is just trying to close the gap.
Yeah.
And in this era, the Chargers just couldn't find a guy to close that gap.
Well, in this era, outside of their 8-7 season in 87, they finished 4th or 5th in the AFC West every other year. Like, they're getting the brakes beat off them by Los Angeles, I guess, at the time, and Denver.
Yep.
Because Seattle's still dog shit, and 1990 is when Schottenheimer comes and kind of turns the Chiefs around. But what ends up happening in 1990, January 3rd, 1990, they have a huge boost because they're able to hire Bobby Beathard as their GM. I know I brought Beathard up in that Christmas Day game one because he was a GM of the Dolphins at the time and a former scout. I mean, he's a football lifer and he's in the Hall of Fame because he knows how to evaluate talent. He comes in, and one good thing that he's able to do that he did with Washington is, interesting fact, Washington, from the time they drafted Sammy Baugh in the 30s to Heath Schuler in 1994, never picked a quarterback in the first round of a draft.
Oh, that's interesting.
All of the quarterbacks that won Super Bowls for them were Joe Theismann, drafted by the Dolphins in 1971, acquired later in a trade after he played up in Canada. Doug Williams, while he was a first-round pick, he was a first-round pick for the Buccaneers.
Yeah.
They picked him up off the USFL scrap heap to be a backup. He won a Super Bowl. And then their last Super Bowl winning team, which Beathard basically built, which happened in 1991, was Mark Rippon from Washington State, who was, I believe, a 5th or 6th round pick. And what Beathard comes in to do is he tries to solidify the quarterback position. And although they finished 4-12 in 1991, they find a guy who they think will be the guy in John Freeze leading into the 1992 season, because 1992 is very important when we're talking about this team, because that's the year they lure Bobby Ross, who won a national championship at Georgia Tech. They lure him away from the college game to coach the Chargers. And in the preseason, they're like, okay, we have a good young quarterback. We have a good young core. Beathard's been building this thing. And Freeze goes down with a knee injury.
Yep.
Like a devastating knee injury. But Beathard, because he had accumulated kind of all this mid-round talent at quarterback in Washington, he calls Charlie Casserly and Jack Kent Cooke in Washington and ends up acquiring Stan Humphries in the preseason as a trade. Stan Humphries later becomes the Chargers starting quarterback, but he's a guy that Beathard knows and is comfortable with and can kind of run the offense. And in 92, they're picked basically last, and they start off horribly. They start off 0-4.
Oh, damn.
They start 92 off 0-4, and they finish 11-5. They have a midseason loss, I think, at Arrowhead against the Chiefs, but they make the playoffs. They make it as a 3 seed, and they beat Kansas City to move on to the divisional round. They shut Kansas City out.
Oh, shit.
And then they're blanked by Miami.
Yep.
Because Miami was the, I believe, number 2 seed that season. So, yeah, they...
with a young team.
With a very young team.
Yeah.
And 93, they play a little bit of a tougher schedule. They finish 8-8, but you can see that Ross and Beathard have finally brought some stability. But from that 93 to 94, that 93-94 offseason, their team is completely shattered by free agency and losses of players.
Well, this is what I thought was so interesting, because 92, they did have this great team that people were thinking like, oh, this team's going to go on. And then literally like the next offseason, they lose just like, I think they lost almost 20 players.
They lost 19 players.
19,
yeah. And they lost. Here's a list of the guys they lost. They lost their all-pro leading receiver, Anthony Miller, to Denver in free agency.
Yep.
To their credit, in 93, they had drafted Natrone Means out of North Carolina in the 2nd round.
Oh, okay.
So they were able to use that and trade Marion Butts, who was their leading rusher from the year before and had made some Pro Bowls. We brought him up in the 89 draft episode, if you guys want to listen to that. They trade him to New England for like 3rd and 5th round picks.
Yep.
But they also lose Gary Plummer, their veteran middle linebacker. He goes to San Francisco. They lose Marquez Pope at corner. I mean, they're losing like
starters.
Derek Walker at tight end. They're losing a lot of starting talent.
Yeah.
But what ends up happening is Beathard makes some pretty savvy moves leading into that season to replace these guys. Like at wide receiver, you're not going to replace an Anthony Miller. He was a very underrated player during the 1990s for the Chargers and later Broncos. They end up going and getting Tony Martin from the scrap heap in Miami as a downfield receiving threat. And they also end up getting Mark Say as like their slot 3rd receiver to join Sean Jefferson as the number 2 guy. Mark Say is a great story. I don't know if you read anything about him, but he had was protecting, I believe, his niece when there was like a shooting at a party. And they almost didn't let him play college football. He had to sign a waiver to be able to play and wear like special padding and stuff, so the university couldn't be sued if he was after he was shot. But they get those guys.
Well, they got, and this is what I find so interesting, and this is why the Chargers are starting to build a good team, is they replace Anthony Miller with these other guys that fill in the places that he needed, essentially.
Yeah, and they had lost as a cornerback with Pope, so they get Dwayne Harper there. They replace Plummer with Dennis Gibson at middle linebacker. They bring in David Griggs as their left outside linebacker, and then veteran Reuben Davis along the defensive line to put in the middle there.
Yeah. But
they still have talent, and they're kind of a mystery team in 94, because this is kind of the fallout of all those Bills, Super Bowl making teams. So the AFC is wide open, but in the Chargers division, you're thinking, well, Kansas City's going to be good because Montana's coming back. The Raiders are always going to be competitive. Denver is using free agency to build a leviathan of an offense, even though because they fired Dan Reeves and they're finally opening it up under Jim Fossil and Wade Phillips.
Yep.
So you're thinking, man, maybe a third place finish and a wild card at best for this team. But that's not what the Chargers are thinking. And they start the season off in 94 in one of the most exciting regular season games I've ever seen. They have to go to Mile High and play the souped-up Broncos, who had made the playoffs the year before as a wild card. And, well, what ends up happening is the game starts and they fall down 17-0. Then they come back because they try a 2-point conversion. They're down 24 and miss, and they're down 24-6. So Denver is just keeping it ahead. Elway has the offense chugging, but the Chargers end up getting it tied at 27 later in the game, and it just keeps on going and going, and they end up getting a John Carney field goal. Who, great kicker. He was All-Pro that year, first team All-Pro. He was one of the most consistent. He kicked about 20 years in the league, and what Denver screws up at the end of the first half, Elway throws an interception basically in the end zone, which safety Stanley Richard takes all the way back for a touchdown. Then at the end of the game, Denver's only down 3 points. They're down, 37-34.
Okay, yeah.
They're at the goal line, and at the end of the fourth quarter, all they need is a field goal, and Junior Seau, as Elway's rolling to his right, ends up picking it off. And they just steal a win in Denver.
Yeah.
They completely steal it. Everybody's shocked by this.
Well, yeah, I was going to say everybody thought that this team was still in the rebuild and they weren't going to go to this, like you said, souped up Denver team and beat them.
And it's almost a foreshadowing of kind of how they win games this season. Because they're on the offensive side of the ball, they're not like a flashy team. Ralph Friedgen, who had a very successful career as head coach at Maryland after this, is their offensive coordinator. They're a little bit different than other teams in the league in terms of the way that their offensive formations are based out of, because they don't use a fullback.
Oh, okay.
Means is their main guy in the backfield. You have Eric Bieniemy as his backup, and then Swiss Army knife Ronnie Harmon, who tied for the team lead in receptions, as kind of like the third down guy who catches passes, can work the slot type deal. They're really only running a single back offense, but instead of a tight end, or instead of a fullback, they use like an H-back second tight end. So they run out of that ace formation with two tight ends on the line of scrimmage, or they'll put usually Alfred Papunu, their tight end, in the backfield as like an H-back.
Okay.
The only time they really used a fullback was in goal line, which they were very inconsistent this year, which I'll later bring up, as far as punching the ball in from inside the 5. They'll bring in fullback / linebacker Steve Hendrickson to do most of the blocking. So it's not like it's a flashy offense. It's just more of a ground and pound with Means. He gets stronger as the game goes on. Get a lot of play action to Martin deep. Have Seau and Jefferson run the intermediates, and then have guys like Papunu as the valve dump type of tight end.
Well, it kind of works too because their defense steps up a lot of the time. That's something that I saw is this kind of offense works when the defense takes the ball away or stops the offense.
Bill Arnsparger's coaching the defense. He was Don Shula's defensive coordinator in Miami for like a decade and a half. He had the Killer Bees defense that went to the Super Bowl in 82 and then again in 84. I mean, and what ends their offense wasn't bad though, like from, watching the games and things like. They were efficient. They were just an efficient
that was
good
something,
team.
Yeah.
And they finished 5th in points per game with 23.8. Points against, their defense was good. They were 9th overall. On offense, though, they were at the 3rd fewest turnovers in the league.
Oh, that's interesting.
Which I thought was very important for kind of the way that they played ball. But after that Denver win, they reel off 5 more in a row to start 6-0.
And that's when people, during this streak, people's attitudes changed towards this team, as they should.
As they should have. And it was so cool because it was 1994 was the NFL's 75th season, so the Chargers wore a lot of their powder blue uniforms.
Oh yeah, awesome,
yeah. And during this stretch, because next week they beat Cincinnati 27-10, they beat Seattle 24-10, they beat the Raiders in a close one, 26-24 on a last-second Carney field goal. That game was really exciting. Darrien Gordon was one of the league's best punt returners during that era. He had 2 punt return touchdowns.
Awesome.
in that game. Yeah, I actually saw him when he later went to the Broncos. Returned 2 in a game.
That's awesome.
Yeah, in person, it was pretty great. They beat Kansas City 20-6, New Orleans 36-22, but then they play Denver again and they lose 20-13.
Well, this is kind of what everybody thought the first game was going to be. Was Elway? Maybe it was going to be close, but Elway kind of closing it out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's not what happened in that first game. But you could see that these two are the best teams, essentially.
Yeah, and that was kind of the point where people kind of started figuring them out, and people kind of started thinking of the Chargers as an afterthought, because over their next 8 games, they go 3-5. They're 9-5, and Kansas City is still kind of lurking in the background to maybe steal the division away from them.
Well, this is something that I feel like kind of happens is schemes get figured out and teams kind of figure out what they can do to beat a team. And
because their defense, you do have Pro Bowlers Leslie O'Neal and Junior Seau. Like, O'Neal's your main pass rushing threat. I believe Chris Mims was good between the tackles. I think he had 11 sacks that year. But you're really only generating pressure with the front four. You're playing a lot of zone, and you're just kind of waiting for the other team to make mistakes. And some teams are taking advantage against them. I was going to say,
if they're not making mistakes, they're kind of winning these games.
Exactly. Like, you're not using your linebackers blitzing much. I don't think their linebackers had maybe more than 2 sacks combined between all of them that year. But they have 2 crucial games at the end of the year. One against the Jets in New York, and the Jets had kind of fallen off after that Marino fake spike game.
Yeah.
And typical Jets, Jesus. And a game at home the final week of the year against the AFC number 1 seed Steelers. So what happens in that Jets game, they go out and just beat the brakes off them. Martin has a long touchdown reception. They beat them 21-6. So they're 10-5. And it's important that they're 10-5 because Miami at that time is 9-6.
Oh, okay.
But Miami has the tiebreaker over them in the AFC. So San Diego needs to win their final game at Jack Murphy against Pittsburgh to ensure they get a first-round bye. Pittsburgh, on the other hand, is already 12-3. They've clinched the number 1 seed in the AFC. They have basically nothing to play for and start backups for most of that game. And it's one of the most fun games I've watched, even though Pittsburgh ended up losing this particular game, is that even their backups play well.
Well, I was just going to say their backups are probably playing for their livelihood. Does that make sense?
They totally were.
Yeah, they're playing to showcase their skill.
And that season, O'Donnell was hurt for a chunk, so Mike Tomczak had a lot, and even when he was with the Bears in Cleveland before, he had starting experience.
Yep.
And him and O'Donnell's skill sets relatively the same. It's not like it's
one
so vast.
Dominant. Yeah.
It's not like going from Patrick Mahomes to what's his name, Chad Henne or anything like that.
Yeah.
But the Chargers end up pulling it out late, 37-34, which is good because Miami won their final game of the season.
Yep.
So the Chargers are sitting pretty. They're 11-5 that year. They go 11-5. They have just an absolutely incredible season.
Here's my question, because I'm not completely versed in this. Was this the Chargers' best regular season, 11-5?
No, they were at least 12-4 in '79 when they had the loss in the divisional round, and then later Marty Schottenheimer got fired after a 14-2 season.
Oh, okay,
that was Tomlinson season.
Yeah, the Tomlinson season. Yes, that was the one I was trying to remember.
And you can kind of tell from their offensive stats on the year, like, how they're just an efficient, good team. Like, Humphries is only completing 58% of his passes, 17 touchdowns, 12 picks. Means has 1,350 yards and 12 touchdowns, but he's averaging less than 4 yards a carry.
Yep.
Harmon, he has 58 catches, which tie for the team lead. Jefferson's got 43, Say's got 58, Martin's got 50, almost averaging like 18 yards a catch.
But they really distribute the ball throughout this offense.
Yeah, because, combined, their tight ends had 38 catches for 3 touchdowns.
Yeah.
And there's 3 guys. So, Pupunu and Dwayne Young, actually between the 2 of them. But yeah, it's just more of a ball control, ball distribution offense, almost like that
game strategy,
Orange Crush type of thing we had talked about a couple of weeks ago. But their special teams was really good. Not only Carney, but Andre Coleman had 2 kick returns for touchdowns. Gordon had those 2 punt returns in that game against the Raiders, Los Angeles.
I saw Rodney Harrison hadn't broken through, future Hall of Famer.
Rodney Harrison was actually a rookie on that team.
Yeah.
He solely played on special teams,
Yeah.
oddly enough, because you had Stanley Richard and what's his name? Carrington as your 2 safeties, Darren Carrington. And both of them, had between the 2 of them and the rest of their defensive backs had 14 picks. I mean, they were a pretty good bunch, but the defense was just pretty much Seau and O'Neal and their 2 tons of fun in the middle with Mims and stuff like that.
And like you were saying, they were almost relying on the offense making mistakes.
Yeah, rely on the offense to make mistakes, play ball control with Means.
Yep.
Don't make mistakes on offense. Like I said, that, third best in the league in not turning it over.
Not turning it over, yeah, because that's another big thing about playing this style of game strategy is you have to absolutely limit your team's turnovers, or it is that could be the biggest default in running this kind of thing.
Oh, most definitely. Like what you end up having at this juncture, though, is they get the first round bye. And they draw the Dolphins, which 2 years ago had shut them out at Joe Robbie Stadium.
Yep.
But this game is in San Diego, and it's not starting well for the Chargers because Marino is carving them up off the bat. I mean, first drive, touchdown pass to Keith Jackson. But as the Chargers did all season, they answered with a field goal.
I was going to say the makeup of this game is very much like their regular season games.
And second drive, Miami scores a touchdown. San Diego answers with a field goal. But as the teams are kind of playing it, more evenly throughout the first half, Miami gets a late touchdown to go up 21-6 at halftime with 27 seconds left. I believe Marino hit Mike Williams for a touchdown.
That's got to be a heartbreaking one where you think that you're going to be coming back second half, and then it's just like Marino's just like, nah,
no.
I'm putting this one in right now. And this is why this Chargers team is so good, or we're even talking about them as they
were very resilient all year. I mean,
yeah.
Did they have a lot of things break completely in their favor? Yeah, but they took advantage every single time.
Yeah, exactly.
And even when things were going wrong for them, I mean, when the second half started, San Diego got the ball first. They had a 16-play drive out of halftime.
I feel like
16 plays.
That's very much what their offense is trying to do.
Exactly. Just keep Marino off the field,
Yep.
Try and get back in the game. But as I brought up with how bad that their goal line offense was that year, they go for it on 4th down and Means gets stopped. And it's a very interesting play because when you fumble on 4th down, the ball is where it is. He fumbled the ball before it hit the pylon in the end zone, so it's not a touchback. Miami doesn't get the ball on their own 20-yard line. They have to start basically in the shadow of their own goal line.
Oh, wow.
And it works to their advantage because on the first play when Marino tries to just, a little halfback dive to Bernie Parmalee, Reuben Davis gets back there and stuffs him for a safety.
Yep.
So it's 21-8.
Well, and that's where the momentum changes.
And it's almost like Miami should have let Means score so they could have got the ball back because after a safety, San Diego gets the ball back again.
Exactly.
And on the ensuing drive, what ends up happening, Means scores a 24-yard touchdown. And if you've never seen the play, this is where another example of why I believe instant replay is necessary in sports. Means' foot is out on the 3-yard line. He picks up a first down, but he's out of bounds. And their goal line offense has been failing a lot. Failed earlier in the game. Who knows if they would have stopped him on that? I mean, obviously they could have scored, but they give him the touchdown, and they're down 21-15. And then the game kind of stalls again, kind of like in the second quarter.
Yep.
Each team has 3 possessions. Nobody can get any sort of points. The Chargers, however, they go 61 yards towards the end of the fourth quarter. And Humphries completes, I don't know if you watched the play, but Seau comes across almost the line of scrimmage and gets lost kind of in the mix.
Okay.
Humphries drops back, and there's nobody near him at the goal line. Throws an 8-yard touchdown pass to Seau, and Carney makes the extra point to go up 22-21. And it's 35 seconds left in the game. They've come all the way back against Dan Marino.
And shut Dan Marino out for the second half.
Shut him out for the second half.
That was something that I saw for this was the defense was so happy with the way they played in the second half because, I mean...
They made the correct adjustments.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, they completely shut him out. But Marino still has time to work, and he eventually gets the ball down to San Diego's 31-yard line.
Hey, everybody. Just want to take a quick break to let you know that our Sports Experience podcast is brought to you by Engle Studio here, and they're here in Tucson for all your recording needs.
And they bring in Pete Stoyanovich.
There you go.
To kick a 48-yard field goal, and he just misses it. And the Chargers are on the way to the AFC Championship game.
I feel like we've brought
Pittsburgh.
this kick up before.
Yeah? Did
Laces... In, out, in, out.
The laces were in.
I'll tell you what, Dan Marino wouldn't be holding it. God damn it.
No, but they're in the AFC Championship game for
and
the
we're about
first time. Oh, no.
If anybody's
God
ever
damn it.
heard Dom's heart pour out, we're about to hear it. This is when the Chargers beat his beloved Steelers.
Well, let me give a backdrop to this game, right? This is the year I moved from San Diego to Denver. I've never been a Chargers fan.
Yeah.
I've never hated them. I've just always been indifferent. They were just the team that played at Jack Murphy Stadium when the Aztecs and Padres weren't playing there.
Yeah.
Because they weren't a thing. No, like nobody gave a shit. So obviously as a kid, I go with my mom and I start rooting for the Steelers. Now this Steelers team in 94 was, in my opinion, the best one that they've had that they've never won a Super Bowl with.
Oh, that's interesting.
I don't think they would have won the Super Bowl against the 49ers team. But this is when Blitzburg, when you had Chad Brown, Levon Kirkland, Greg Lloyd, Kevin Green, Rod Woodson, Carnell Lake, Darren Perry, fucking Willie Williams. Up front, you have Gerald Williams, Ray Seals. I mean, just absolutely dominant forces. Like, I mean, they were the best defense in the league that year.
Yeah.
Number 1 seed. They had just shut out Cleveland in the divisional round 29-0 and just beat the brakes off them, just absolutely kick the shit out of them. Watching Bill Belichick without Tom Brady fail is just like the most delicious thing ever to watch.
I was going to say, you can watch it in Cleveland that year, and you can watch it this last year in New England, and that's about it.
But so anyway, they're heavily favored because everyone's thinking the Chargers, oh, well, they went, 5-5 down the stretch. They barely eked one out against Marino, at home. And the point spread in this game was 18.5. Pittsburgh was favored by 18.5 points.
I was going to say the game strategy that the Chargers were coming in with, people were thinking was not going to work so well with Steelers because their defense was so good. They weren't going to be able to control the clock. They weren't going to be able to hold the ball. They weren't, you know what I mean?
Bro, these guys were my heroes.
That's what I mean. Yeah.
I mean, they were just so nasty. They were nasty as fuck, dude.
I've never seen a 7-year-old
turn to Franzia.
Turn to Franzia and just start singing the blues.
No, but I mean,
it's like that scene in Weird Science. How about that one? Just like, man, you know what? When the Steelers lost, my man, let me tell you something.
They one thing I wanted to say, because it's not related to the Chargers, but it's related to this podcast. The Steelers were so confident that they would win this game that members of their defense pre-recorded a rap song for the Super Bowl. They it has never seen the light of day, but I have read about this, multiple sources. They recorded all of the defense 1994 rapping about the Super Bowl, which
because
means
that's how confident they were.
Yeah, there's Zubaz, there's probably backwards snapback caps, there is funky sunglasses
and bad rapping.
Oh my God, just to watch that. Oh God.
We're the Steelers, and we're here to say
masturbatory fever dream. It had to have
the Chargers. Hey,
it had to be.
It
had to use the word Blitzburg to rhyme with something. My God.
Oh, that's true. I want to know what they rhymed it with.
Oh my God, right? I don't know. I don't know the specifics, but I know that it happened.
Yeah.
A
recording session.
Brenston Buckner, the only guy who wasn't a starter on that defense that I had named, was like the guy behind all of it. He was their defensive end, but. The game starts out really well for Pittsburgh. On their opening drive, they march right down the field. They go for it on 4th down. They get it. John L. Williams, who was a great fullback for both the Seahawks and then later the Steelers, catches like a little angle pattern out of a pro formation. And it was a play that they ran against Cleveland the week before, and I believe he scored a touchdown on. Or no, it was a run, but he was a good open field runner as a fullback.
Yep.
And takes it right in at 7-0, and you're thinking the route is on.
Yeah.
You're thinking the route is on. But they get conservative like they most often did during Bill Cowher's postseason bed shittings at home.
I always thought this was so weird when teams get too conservative too early. And this is the definition of it, because they get conservative in the first quarter.
And what is crappy is their defense is still dominating. The Chargers only managed 3 points in that first half.
Yep.
It came from a 40-yard pass interference penalty on Sean Jefferson at the 1-yard line, and the Chargers, shitty short yardage team, couldn't punch it in. That was the only offense they had. At one point in this game, the Steelers had a time of possession lead, 25 minutes and 33 seconds to 8 minutes and 50 seconds.
So, and this is what
But you're thinking 7 points is enough against all these scrubs, right?
Exactly.
And I don't know if it was Cowher. I don't know if it was Ron Earhart calling the plays as the offensive coordinator, but the defense is still dominating under Dom Capers and Dick LeBeau. I mean, they're just, Stan Humphries in the first half was 1 for 5 for 15 yards.
Yeah.
You're thinking 7's going to be enough. And then on the first possession of the second half, Humphries throws a pick to Rod Woodson, but they can't get in the end zone. They have to settle for a Gary Anderson field goal. But they think that it's okay because the defense is still kicking ass. And then another
they're
Anderson.
They're
controlling the game because you have Barry Foster, you have Bam Morris, and you have Williams just toting the rock and keeping the chains moving and the time ticking away.
Yeah. And this is what the Chargers are trying to do. And I feel like in this early on, the Steelers are like, no. Let us show you what this is all about. And then
you thought 10 points was insurmountable against that defense. And when I watched that game for the first time in 26 years earlier this week, I was very cross-faded, but I distinctly remember when they kicked that second field goal, I think they had it 1st and goal at the 6. If they had scored a touchdown and gone up 14 on them, I think San Diego might have given up.
I agree. The effort wouldn't have been there.
I would feel that San Diego would have been like 2 touchdowns. Man, I don't know. But man, to their credit, they came the fuck back. God damn it.
The sadness.
Because later, Humphries, great play action pass. It was either a busted coverage by Deion Figures or Carnell Lake. I'll have to look at the film again, but someone was supposed to pick up Papunu.
Oh, okay.
Off the line, basically off the line of scrimmage out of the backfield. Humphries just throws him this little, the fucking duck is what the goddamn pass was. Papunu has not a guy with it. He's not the fastest person ever. He's just some stout Polynesian jagoff. Nobody within 15 yards of him, and he's running down the sidelines.
So it was just like a complete mismarking.
Yeah, it was a complete busted coverage.
Yeah.
By one of 2 players, but it's 13-10, and you're still thinking, okay, well, you're still up 13-10. Everything is going to be okay.
The defense could still hold them out, but this Chargers team, man, they just essentially go down all these first halves and then come back.
Yeah, because it's in the middle of the third quarter when this happens, and the game is playing out for the entirety up until a certain disaster point at 5:13 in the fourth quarter, where Humphries throws another 43-yard touchdown pass to Tony Martin, who beat veteran cornerback on so many good 49er Super Bowl winning teams. Tim McKyer was a fly pattern where Martin is your speedster, makes it appear he's going outside. McKyer bites, cuts back in, creates the separation.
And just has him.
Humphries hits him in stride on that one. I mean, it was an incredible play. They had to help McKyer off the field after the game. He was so
disheartened,
distraught, sobbing and shit. It was horrible.
I'm sure, because this is the play that unfortunately kind of loses them the game. And
well, I want to talk about this part and how much I hate Dennis Gibson right now. You're up 17-13, but the Steelers still have time. They still have time. They have to go 83 yards to score a touchdown because you're down 4. You're down 17-13.
Yep.
And O'Donnell runs 10 plays, and he gets them all the way down to the 3-yard line. It's 4th and 3. For whatever reason, they call the pass play to Foster, and Foster was not their receiving back.
Okay.
If you're throwing the ball to any of your running backs on that current roster, it should be John L. Williams and
it's
nobody
not
else.
Foster. Yeah.
It's not and you have, at that time, 4 competent receivers in Yancey Thigpen, Andre Hastings, Charles Johnson, and Ernie Mills. And Mills was usually the money man, which he'll prove the next season when basically their whole mantra is 3 more yards. O'Donnell, for whatever reason, and you have Eric Green at tight end.
Okay.
And he was a Pro Bowl tight end. He was really good when he wanted to play. He tries to hit Foster over the middle, and Dennis Gibson is on his back basically diving, and he swats the ball away. And the Chargers destroyed my soul and made their first Super Bowl appearance.
I just wonder what Dom DiTolla the man would have been if the Chargers had lost that game. Probably would have cured cancer.
Probably not, but I'll say my liver wouldn't have taken quite the pound. And I will say this: of all I've watched,
so hold on. So you would have cured liver disease in one man.
One man.
That's enough.
That's enough, man. But let me say this. I know this is about the Chargers, but I'll say this: this was such an upset, and I find it so incredible that the Chargers even did this. I've watched the Steelers lose numerous playoff games they should have won. I've seen them lose 2 Super Bowls. I've seen them get ass rammed by Curtis Martin in a blizzard. I've seen them in the playoffs. I've seen them lose to Blake Bortles in a playoff game before.
Yeah.
This is the worst. This was the absolute worst.
Because
I've seen them
so
lose to the
better.
Broncos in an AFC Championship game when I lived in Denver.
Yeah.
Like, this is, bar none, the sickest I've ever felt about, I think, any sporting event ever, because it was in the fucking bag, for fuck's sake. Sorry about that.
I'm just saying, they would have made this Super Bowl probably one of the best Super Bowls ever.
Well, I'll say this about the team they would have faced, and I'll get into it with the Chargers. The 49ers that year were basically built to dethrone Dallas from winning the last 2 year Super Bowls by beating San Francisco.
Yep.
Because they went out that offseason. They got Gary Plummer. They got Kenny Norton. They got Prime Time. They built that roster as like a one-and-done free agency crew to say fuck you to Dallas. Their offensive coordinator's Mike Shanahan. Their quarterback's coach is Gary Kubiak. I mean, Steve Young is your quarterback. This is... I think they went 14-2 or 13-3. This is arguably one of the top 5 teams that has ever existed in pro football history.
Yes.
Had Pittsburgh played them, they might have got within 10. They maybe would have got closer if they had that time of possession advantage I mentioned before in the Charger game, but it would have been at least a competitive game.
Yes.
I still think San Francisco would have obviously won. Yeah, because...
their offense and their just overall team was
they were just so good, and that's not good for the Chargers.
No,
because they match up horribly against them with the way their defense is and how many playmakers San Francisco has on offense and their inability to stay in a game with their own offense.
Exactly.
If it gets out of hand.
They don't have enough big time coverage because it's so crazy, this Super Bowl. Steve Young just pretty much picks out who he wants to.
Well, there's a story where Young and Mike Shanahan, because in the West Coast offense, you script the first 15 plays.
Oh, okay.
And before the game, Shanahan and Young were talking about the game plan, and Shanahan apparently he gave Steve Young so much confidence because he's reading all these plays off the sheet, and he's just like, this is a touchdown, this is a touchdown, this is a touchdown, this is a touchdown.
Yeah.
Like, you're 19-point favorites for a reason. And that team never played conservatively. Ever.
No.
And in this game that the Chargers go into, massive underdogs. Love the work they've done. San Francisco scores 2 touchdowns faster than any team in Super Bowl history.
And it's obvious.
And the Chargers are out of position on both of them. Richard and Carrington have no idea what's going on. Rice catches the first bomb. Waters breaks a tackle and goes for another 40-plus yard touchdown. Like,
something I saw in this first quarter was somebody said it looked like the last game of the regular season, and a team that went 11 or a team that went like 13-3, like they was playing a team that went like 5-11. That's how much better the 49ers were.
Well, during that losing streak, they lost to San Francisco by more than 20 points in San Diego. I mean, during that, or I shouldn't say losing streak, but that 5-5 stretch.
Yes.
And yeah, it was like they were playing it. But in that first game, it was different than the Super Bowl, because in the Super Bowl, it looked like they were playing a completely different fucking sport.
Yes.
Because at halftime, it's already 28-10. And it just keeps going. Young throws 6 touchdown passes. They call off the dogs when they get to 49 points.
I saw that.
They get 3 interceptions. I mean, it's a game that is completely tailored against what San Diego was able to do, despite being such an awesome Cinderella story of a team.
And, well, something I saw was San Francisco could have beat them by 70, and that's not an exaggeration.
It is probably the biggest Super Bowl mismatch. I don't want to say all time, because that Super Bowl shuffle Bears against the Patriots is pretty bad.
Yep.
And that Broncos 49ers one, that 55-10 massacre.
Yep.
Because that's still the biggest margin of victory
Ever.
The most points scored in a Super Bowl. Yeah. I wouldn't even call any of the Buffalo losses as
bad as
as mismatched as that. It was almost sad to watch, but I was like, oh, take that, fuckers.
I was going to say sad, but definitely justice filled. That was
definitely. But
definitely what you thought the Steelers were going to do.
Yeah, well, I didn't think they'd think they'd hang a 49 burger on them, but I at least thought they'd break 20.
Yes.
For fuck's sake,
Because that could have won. Let's talk.
Yeah. So, but this team is like very important in Chargers history. I mean, like only team to make a Super Bowl ever, and this comes at a time in San Diego sports history I wanted to bring up because people aren't really feeling good about the teams in the town.
Oh, okay.
So, like, Donald Sterling moves the Clippers to L.A. about a decade before. After the Padres make the World Series in 84, they get really good young players, but by 93, they've either traded them away or fire sold them. The most egregious was when they basically traded Fred McGriff for a fucking washing machine to Atlanta in 93.
Yep.
But 94, it just gets worse than 94 because while they have the second worst team in baseball, Tony Gwynn is hitting 394 in August. He's going to hit 400, and then the fucking strike happens. Sorry for yelling, but my God. Like, they can't catch a break, but the Chargers capture the city's hearts.
Yeah.
I mean, they make a Super Bowl.
Was this your least favorite year for sports? I hate to say it because Tony Gwynn was going on that streak, but they really
Oh yeah,
him over.
no, they the players dictate. He's talked about it before, where he said like, "Hell yeah, I wanted to finish the season, but I'm a union guy and I had to strike."
Yeah,
but probably the worst.
I was gonna say
probably the worst because Falk and Scott had already left for the NFL for the Aztec. Yeah, probably the worst.
All right,
yeah, probably the worst.
Probably the worst
players.
Probably the worst sports year of Dom's life.
But they're beloved. I mean, they happened at a time when things weren't great as far as morale in the city around sports. And 95, they're thinking, oh man, maybe we could get a repeat from the AFC. But they end up making the wild card, and they lose their first game to the Colts, who put the fear of God into the Steelers and myself in that AFC championship on a Hail Mary that didn't work, thank God. But oddly enough, that was the Chargers' last playoff appearance, 1995 until 2004.
So, I mean, you could tell what this team meant.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, essentially last winning team for a decade.
I can guarantee you if they somehow, against the laws of physics, win that Super Bowl, they never leave San Diego because the new stadium is built.
Yeah.
They had the misfortune of the Padres making the World Series in 98 and a vote coming for a new downtown stadium. And nobody wanted to go downtown like when I was a kid because there was nothing there except like government buildings and shit. It was just an absolute shit show.
Well, it was people working, and then it died at 5 o'clock.
Died at 5 o'clock and also was not a great area to be in.
Yes.
But what ended up happening was, because you have no restrictions as far as hotels and businesses and things, you can carte blanche to build, and people voted for Petco. And the Padres lucked the hell out. It's all timing. If the Chargers, the vote was that year, likely you're looking at a new stadium for the Spanos family and they never leave, and get all dickish and shit. But
well, the trajectory and this is the thing that one game essentially changes the Chargers,
Oh yeah, it totally does. But the players on this team, it kind of mirrors the downfall of this franchise. If you want to talk about this, don't you?
Well, a lot of these players, it's so weird because they replaced a lot of players during this right before this team, and then a lot of these players from this team just have bad post-career, almost unlucky.
Yeah, almost unlucky. Some guys self-inflicted. Other guys
always.
you're just like, that shouldn't happen.
Yep.
Like, so the reason we bring this up is 8 players from this team that went to the Super Bowl have died already.
Yeah.
And not of old age.
No, yeah,
Not nearly of old age. Like, let's run through them. I'm going to run through them.
Yes,
here real
please.
Quick. David Griggs, starting left linebacker, 28 years old, died June 19th, 1995, automobile crash. Car slid off the expressway ramp in Fort Lauderdale and hit a sign pole.
Yeah.
Rodney Culver, this one is actually really tragic. I mean, they're all tragic, but this one is fucked up. 26 years old, March 11th, 1996. Him and his wife on Value Jet 592 crashed in the Everglades.
Yep.
Luggage was caught and caused a fire and caused the plane to crash. Orphaned 2 girls, 2 and 14 months old. There was actually a good story on that. Jerome Bettis was his teammate at Notre Dame, and he was in an interview with both of his daughters kind of telling them about their dad, but 2 kids lost both their parents.
Yeah.
In that one. Like, just absolute freak thing.
That's what I mean. The post of this team is just sad.
May 11th,
sad,
pardon me, not March 11th. Doug Miller, backup linebacker, died when he was 28, July 21st, 1998. Struck by lightning twice in rural Colorado.
Yeah. I don't know what the hell he was doing.
Sometimes when it's your day, man.
Exactly.
Jesus.
Not once, but twice.
Curtis Whitley, their starting center, died at 39. Again, May 11th, 2008. History of substance abuse.
Yeah.
Fort Stockton, Texas, was released in 94, but re-signed after a DUI arrest after 26 days at Betty Ford. Crystal methamphetamine. Chris Mims, this is the interesting one.
Yep.
Defensive end, 38. October 15th, 2008, enlarged heart. Let himself go to 456 pounds. Police found him after a wellness check. He had a lot of off-field issues, though. Lots of unpaid debts, lots of unpaid child support, DUIs, hit a man outside a Del Taco and stole his tacos in 1999.
Just a man after my own heart.
Yeah, really? I'd love to do that at a Del Taco.
Well, it's interesting because some of these guys freak horribly accidentally died. And then some of these guys really needed help post-career. And
this guy either had CTE or ate his fat ass to death.
Exactly.
Like, honestly. Sean Lee, defensive tackle, part of the 2 Tons of Fun crew.
Yep.
44. February 26, 2011. He had a heart attack caused by diabetes and bouts of pneumonia. Lou Bush, backup linebacker, 42. Died of a heart attack December 8th, 2011. And then the most famous one.
I was going to say.
This is the one where we get into, like, these guys needed help.
Yeah.
And it wasn't necessarily them. Or just a freak accident, 1 in a billion shot.
Struck by lightning twice was the one that I was just like, what the hell was that guy doing?
Maybe you shouldn't have rubbed and destroyed all those terrible towels after the game, you fucking... No, that's not nice, but...
Shit. So Junior Seau.
43, May 2nd, 2012. Shot himself in the chest.
And was...
Why did he shoot himself in the chest?
The CTE, the lack of looking after these players post-career.
Yeah, because he had been battling bouts of depression, a suicide attempt before with his car. Like, he'd been acting strange, but the reason he did it was because that's what Dave Duerson did.
Oh, yeah.
A few years before that.
Interesting.
He shot himself in the chest because he had heard about players with these brain injuries that he wanted his brain studied, and they were like, my God, this guy has like CTE.
Time.
And I don't know if that's why Hernandez hung himself in jail, but they studied his brain, and he had a bad.
It's interesting because some guys have it like ridiculously bad, and other guys who you would think would have it, blocking fullbacks, that kind of shit, and they don't have it. So it definitely is individuals, the way your brain is,
brain
guessing
functions, stuff like that,
or sitting in your skull, or it's hard to even know. But he had it, and it's interesting you brought Hernandez up. Both had it so bad that people were talking about them changing the way, I mean, Hernandez, but them changing essentially their personalities.
Yeah. I mean, it completely turned him into a 180 person.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, Hernandez was probably allegedly murdering people
I know that's,
CTE,
I was going to say, it's hard to put those two in the same sentence, but Junior Seau was, this is what his wife said, was changed.
Yeah, just a changed person. And it's tragic, and there's 8 of them gone now.
Yep.
I mean, luckily everyone else is still alive, but just tragic, dude.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the triumph and tragedy story. Like a team out of nowhere, probably not picked higher than 4th, maybe even 3rd in their own division, goes to the Super Bowl.
Well, the trajectory of this franchise and maybe some of these players would have changed if,
oh, yeah.
you know,
oh,
if other things could have happened. They definitely were never going to beat that 49er team, but, you know.
Well, if you think about it, I mean, the deaths have nothing to do with it.
No.
But the franchise after that, you only have 1 conference title game appearance in 26 years.
Yeah.
I mean, and you had LaDainian Tomlinson, and you had Drew Brees and Phillip Rivers, and that's all you could muster. There's some bad juju on those San Diego teams, man. All of them. Jesus.
I feel like it's the Steelers getting their
Curse of the terrible towel.
Yeah, getting their curses. They're just like, all right, look, we got to curse the Chargers again. They're just so bad.
Yeah. Stop it. They're already dead. No, but seriously.
Hey, everybody. This is just a stock message at the end of every episode. We hope you enjoyed whatever athlete and or team that episode was about. Just want to say, give us a quick follow on all social media. We have a YouTube channel, the Sports Experience Podcast, and we're on Instagram, DiTolla Dominic, and myself, C. Quinn Comedy. So give us a follow all around. We're always recording right here at Engle Studio. Thank you all very much.